Hey Mercedes,
What can I do for you?
what do you think of the GLC?
I suppose I think it's exactly as good as you think it is.
So Mercedes thinks it's as good as I think it is, so let's find out what I think about it. This is not a facelift, this is a whole new generation of the Mercedes-Benz GLC, and as with every new generation, it is bigger, it is more luxurious on the inside, it has more space and it has more tech. This car is also now a mild hybrid. Welcome to Humpy, it's a beautiful day and we're going to spend it with the Mercedes-Benz GLC. Now before we get to the driving, let's quickly talk about the styling of the GLC because it has changed for this new generation. There's a new grille, there's a new headlamp, there's a new face essentially. The grille has this single slat. The headlamps are LED headlamps and they're now joined to the grille. So on both ends, they touch the grille and that gives it a little wider look. The face is fresh. Down here, you've got chrome for the skid plate. And there's a fair bit of chrome around the car. There's some in the grille. And when you come over to the side, you'll see more on the sides as well. The windows have a chrome surround. You've got really good looking wheels. Luxury car makers tend to make bland wheels, I guess to save cost, but these wheels actually look really nice. 19-inch wheels with Continental rubber on it. Further back, you'll notice there's a footboard to get into the car, and this is a tapered footboard design. It's interesting. So the rear footboard is actually a little wider than what it is at the front. Further back, again, cool wheels. Very neat touch on the GLC, and I think it gives it a lot of character in profile. And at the back, you've got a completely new design, new tail lamps. Obviously, that sit in line with Mercedes' new design language, more in line with the other SUVs in the range. And this is the GLC 300, which means it has a petrol engine, and that's what we're going to be driving today. More chrome down at the rear. This whole rear skid plate, the exhaust tips, all of that is done in chrome. And the GLC is bigger than before. So in terms of length, it's 60 mm longer. The wheelbase is 15 mm longer. The track width is also wider as well. 6 mm in the front, 23 mm in the rear, though there's been no change to the overall width of the car. So this is a proper new generation car that has properly grown in size. It's not just overhangs, but the car itself has grown. This interior architecture has obviously been inspired by the C-Class, and that is no bad thing because the cabin of the GLC has been uplifted a fair bit. In front of me, digital instrument cluster, that's par for the course, but with Mercedes you can go into the menus and choose which mode you want it. So it can look visually different basis how you program the screen. In the center, new infotainment screen. This again, similar to the C-Class, a really large infotainment screen and a really useful one. Once you get used to these large infotainment screens, it's really hard to go back to smaller ones. You get spoiled almost with how large everything is on the screen, how much maps covers the whole screen. The only grouse I have is that the AC controls are in the screen, so they're not easy to touch. The good thing is they're on there permanently. You don't have to press a button to access them. They are permanently set at the bottom of the screen, but you still have to find them on a touch screen while you're driving. Material selection in the GLC is really nice. So you've got this wood finish on the dash with these metal lines within them. You've got more metallic type finish, but it's actually plastic. Above that, you've got soft touch leather, and even down here where it is usually just hard plastics, this is all soft touch and really nice feeling. The air vents, just look at how they are built. The tactility, the quality in them is really good. In the doors as well, around the windows, you've got this really nice finish. You've got Burmester audio on this car, and these speakers, they look really good, but they also sound really good. And you've got a panoramic sunroof in here. The seats, they're soft, they're comfortable. The leather is really rich. They hold you well. You sit comfortably in here, and from the driver's seat, it feels like the GLC has taken a significant step up in the luxury department. let's talk about the back seat of the GLC. In terms of knee room, very good. There's a fair amount of knee room. These seats are heavily scooped out, so knee room itself is not a problem. The feet space is a little compromised because of the way the seat is mounted. The rails are fairly narrowly mounted, so the space for my feet again is a little narrow. It's not too much of a problem, but it did catch me out. In terms of the seat, there's a good amount of thigh support, a lot better than before. There's nice lumbar support, there's good back support. The backrest is a little upright, not too bad, but it's okay. It's a good compromise between upright and comfortable. Otherwise, there are really nice touches in the back seat. All of the tactile points feel really good. These Burmester speakers, again, they give such a rich look to the car, and it feels nice to be sitting in these back seats. This little floating armrest here, again a neat touch. The cup holders, you push it once, twice, and these cup holders pop out. Again, a very cool touch. You've got the same AC vents from the front, which is a good thing. Nice, expensive feeling AC vents, and you've got USB Type-C points below. Overall, I think it's a good place to be, this back seat. It's a little cramped in terms of space, but it's okay if you want to spend a little bit of time in the back seat. Okay, so first impressions of the Mercedes-Benz GLC. It feels quick. This petrol engine, it is turbocharged and it has mild hybrid assist. Now both GLCs, the petrol and the diesel, have mild hybrid. And off the line, it feels very sprightly. Now let's talk numbers. In terms of power, it makes 254 bhp and 400 Nm of torque. Those are good numbers. Plus, the mild hybrid system adds a little bit of performance. So it can add 23 horsepower and up to 200 Nm when it's boosting up. Now, this mild hybrid system has a dual role. It essentially boosts performance and efficiency at the same time. So what it does is, at lower revs where there is turbo lag generally, it fills in torque and doesn't let that turbo lag get so apparent. So when you step on the throttle, the lag doesn't feel that much. You know, it feels very instant in terms of the responses. Obviously, it doesn't feel electric quick, like the responses aren't like an electric car, but it feels much quicker than a regular turbocharged car. And the second aspect of that mild hybrid system is the fact that it can improve efficiency. So it gives it a proper stop-start system. It allows you to coast. So when you're on the highway 80-90 kilometers an hour, it'll turn off the engine and just coast on the power of the battery. And this mild hybrid system, it's obviously an integrated starter motor generator. So under braking, under deceleration, it also feeds power back into the battery, recharges it, and then deploys it the next time you accelerate. But yes, performance is sprightly, it feels enthusiastic, it feels quick, particularly this petrol. Now there are drive modes as well. So you click the dynamic selector, you can put it into sport mode, and throttle responses are better. It feels a little more quick. Obviously the gearbox is tuned a little better for sporty driving. In comfort mode, it's set up for efficiency, so it takes a little bit of time to downshift. It's always in the highest possible gear. In sport mode, it's more ready to accelerate quickly. It stays in lower gears, and that gives you a little more instantaneous performance. Something that I really like about it is that you can hear the turbo spooling up actually at lower revs. When you get on the gas, you can hear a little bit of a whine, a little bit of a that little whistle. It adds so much character to the car. I absolutely love it. Now it's worth mentioning that the GLC will also come with a diesel engine, and that diesel engine will be available from launch. It's a 220D, so 2-liter diesel, makes a little bit less power than this car, and in terms of performance as well, it's a little bit down on this car, but obviously it will give you benefits in terms of efficiency. But I must say, this 300D, it's a really nice motor, and I think it suits the character of the GLC really nicely. Smooth, creamy performance, likes to rev out nicely. It's quick, more than adequate performance for our roads. I mean, it has a claimed 0 to 100 time of 6.2 seconds, so what do you want? You don't need more performance on Indian roads. Let's talk ride and handling. First of all, ground clearance is more, 20 mm more compared to the previous GLC. So you do have a little bit more leeway in terms of how big the bumps you try to scale or how aggressive you want to be off-road. You know what? It's actually very competent on bad roads. GLC is surprisingly good. Low speed ride is good, and it gets better the more you pick up speed. And this is on 19-inch wheels, but it has nice chunky tires. It rides really well on our roads, so over bumps, over crests, over dips, over ditches. It feels solid, it feels really competent. And in terms of like high speeds, obviously it is very planted, very stable. Typical European feel, super planted, super unruffled by the sort of long wave dips and crests we have on our road. It just feels solid. Then we come to the topic of handling. How does it handle? Put it into sport mode, and then straight off the bat, the GLC feels like a competent handler. The steering, it feels quick, it feels dialed in. There's a nice weight to it in sport mode. It feels very natural moving it around on the road. These compact SUVs, they can sometimes feel a bit floaty, a bit all over the place. But I must say the GLC feels tied down. It feels nice. When you thread it through corners, you have a lot of confidence about where you're placing it, about the grip levels, about how it's going to react, and that's always nice. And the handling is complemented by the performance of the engine because it has all-wheel drive, because it has so much performance, because of the mild hybrid that gives you that punch instantaneously. You can actually have a lot of fun. You trail brake in onto corners, get back on the gas quickly, and you're shooting out of corners very, very fast. Slightly tighter turns here, you get on the brake, turn it in, it holds its line. And there is roll, you can feel it get onto its side, but it's not unnerving, it doesn't just squat and then lose control and understeer. There's composure there, it feels connected. The tires will squeal a little bit, but it's not bad, the handling. If you want to have a little bit of fun behind the wheel of the GLC, you can. With SUVs like this, car makers have such a tough time finding a balance between ride and handling, and I think they've done a good job here. Now, it's worth noting that in terms of the suspension spec, there are no dynamic dampers, there's no air suspension. So when you put it into sport mode, what you're essentially manipulating is how the engine feels, the ESP settings, and how the steering feels. You're not playing around with the suspension at all. I would have liked to see dynamic dampers. I think that would have made a great addition to the arsenal of the GLC. It would have made it feel a little more well equipped. It would have given it a little more versatility in terms of how it drives. Not that this is bad, but dynamic dampers would have been a nice touch. Especially since Mercedes is pushing their cars into a more premium space. Every single car is getting more premium, more luxury, more gizmos on the inside. And I think pushing that driving experience also a little more would have been nice. Other stuff that's cool about the GLC, you get off-road mode. So you get into the menu over here, there's an off-road mode and gives you all sorts of off-road displays. So you can see the angles of the car, you can see tire pressures, you can see tire temperatures, you can see your heading, your bearing, all of that. You can also activate something called transparent bonnet. So if I bring the car to a halt and press this button here, it activates transparent bonnet, where it uses cameras in front to show you what's underneath the car. It's pretty cool. So right now I'm going over these little patches of dung and I can actually see the dung passing underneath the car. Now it works only under 8 kilometers an hour. Mainly this is for off-roading. So when you're off-road, you can see where your tires are placed, how they're placed on the trail. If you need to place a tire exactly on a rock or on a ditch or whatever, you can do that with this. And when I turn the wheels, it also shows you where the tire is going to head. It's a pretty neat feature. If I had to be critical of the GLC, what would I say? Number one, I feel like it should have got ventilated seats. We're in India. You've got a fair amount of tech, Burmester audio, panoramic sunroof, massive screens, really high-end stuff. But ventilated seats, it would have just made the driving experience a lot more comfortable. When you're doing long hours on the road in India, in the summer, I think it's a necessity almost. Something else that I would criticize about it are the paddles. They feel very plasticky. Everything you touch and feel around the GLC feels so expensive, so rich. But the paddle shifters, the second you touch them, it's this cheap, hard plastic. That's not very nice. But really, that aside, there's very little to criticize about the GLC. It feels so competent and it's really fun to drive. Like, over these roads, these humpy roads are great, so I can actually drive it a little bit fast. The GLC, it also gets ADAS features, so you get front collision assist, you get lane keep assist. It's useful on the highways in the cities, you want to turn it off, but that's the usual stuff. Cars in this class have now been getting them for a while, so that's nothing out of the ordinary. Overall, the GLC is really impressive. I really like the cabin. I like how it makes you feel inside the car. It feels special, it feels competent, it feels like a luxury car. And to think that this is the second rung only in Mercedes' SUV ladder, you've got the GLA and then you've got the GLC. And at that stage itself in the Mercedes lineup, you're getting pampered. I love it. I absolutely love it. So what's the verdict on the Mercedes-Benz GLC? I think it's an incredibly competent machine. It gets so much right. It's luxurious on the inside. It rides well, it drives well, it handles well. The engine, it has proper punch. It feels like a luxury car. And at the same time, it remains incredibly practical. It really is a proper all-rounder. The GLC in the past has been a bestseller for Mercedes-Benz, and I think this one has the potential to do that as well. Now, it all comes down to the pricing. When you see this video, the prices won't be out, but the launch is tomorrow when you're watching this, so you can expect prices to be out very soon. I expect them to be starting at around 75 lakh rupees ex-showroom. At that price, it is a little more expensive than before, maybe 8 to 10 lakhs. But it also brings a lot more to the table in terms of luxury, in terms of performance, in terms of just how competent it is as a luxury car. Mercedes-Benzes, they are getting expensive, but I think this one will justify that cost.